Earlier this year, I fell back down the rabbit hole that is the DS and 3DS library and found myself ending up in Hotel Dusk, a point-and-click adventure game that follows ex-detective turned salesman Kyle Hyde and his time spent at Hotel Dusk, a rundown motel outside 1979 Los Angeles. In the year of Tears of the Kingdom, Spider-Man 2, and Star Wars Jedi Survivor, from the moment I took in its soundtrack, its atmosphere, and distinct cast of characters, Hotel Dusk was the game that followed me throughout all of 2023. Before we move on with the video, we need to talk about that big announcement made by Nintendo last month. No, I'm not referring to that game, but I am talking about Another Code, Recollection. I must admit, I don't know anything about Another Code, nor have I played it, but I do know it was one of the earlier titles released for the Nintendo DS and has a niche yet extremely passionate following behind it. It also had a sequel on the Wii that was never released for North America called Another Code R. And then, last month, Nintendo decided they'd reveal the comeback to a series no one ever thought they'd see again. Nintendo's acknowledgement of this forgotten saga is a big deal. Not only is it a collection of both the first and second games in the Another Code series, but it's also getting overhauled visuals, 3D environments to explore, voice acting, and tons of other quality of life improvements to make the game more accessible to modern audiences. This is also a huge deal because Nintendo has been gradually expressing a little bit more love for their niche and inaccessible titles bound to systems of the past. Games like Advance Wars, Metroid Prime, Apollo Justice, Ace Attorney, and Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, just to name a few. And the reason I'm bringing up Another Code out of nowhere is because seeing this announcement got me thinking about the idea of another possible comeback that might get some more people excited. I'm talking about Hotel Dusk Room 215. But what makes Hotel Dusk so special and what makes it worth bringing back for a new audience to see? Yes, this is a point-and-click adventure game, but I like to think of it more as a paperback mystery novel stuffed inside of a Nintendo DS. It's a mystery novel so in love with being a video game. It has fun with it, and it takes advantage of the hardware it's on. And I don't mean that in the way of technical performance or graphics, although it is a very beautiful looking game, but Hotel Dusk won't let you forget that you're playing this game on a Nintendo DS. Almost every game from this era had you tap and drag away at the touchscreen to emphasize the console's main selling point. But Dusk will take things just a little bit farther to remind you of all the quirks and bells and whistles of the console that you're playing this on. From the moment it starts, it has you hold your DS like an actual book, and without any kind of tutorial prompts, invites the player to step inside the shoes of ex-detective turned salesman Kyle Hyde. And as the story unfolds, you start to see how it all intertwined with Kyle Hyde's former occupation as an NYPD detective. I found the story to be quite captivating as someone who used to not read a lot of paperback mystery novels from this era. That's since changed thanks to this game. It's December 1979, and Kyle Hyde is tasked with spending a night at Hotel Dusk to fulfill a mystery client's request while also tracking down his former partner from when he was still a detective. Upon his arrival, Hyde receives the key to the wish room, the room that grants wishes. From there, you meet the various patrons of the hotel, all of which seem like random strangers at first, but as the night goes on, it's clear that everyone at Hotel Dusk has one thing in common. They're all searching for someone, or they've at least all lost someone who's meant a lot to them. And watching all of these characters link and intertwine with one another was exciting because it also meant I had to keep my own physical notes to keep tabs on everything going on. Speaking of which, I think I was able to empathize with the story a lot more because of how the game essentially asks you to roleplay as Kyle Hyde. In this game, you're physically knocking on doors, ringing the desk bell, grabbing items out of people's hands. You're also encouraged to write down your own physical notes into your DS, which will then prompt the characters around you to react. This game does such a good job of immersing the player into its setting and its story with little touches like these, and that kind of usage of the touchscreen might not sound special, but the part where Dusk goes that extra mile is when it asks you to really pay attention to the hardware you're playing on and think outside the box as far as puzzles go. Hotel Dusk has such a unique art style and soundtrack to create its distinct atmosphere. One thing is for certain, no other game really ever has looked like this. Combine Kyle Hyde's hard-boiled tone with every other character's down-to-earth dialogue and humanistic expressions, and you get a mystery novel that really comes to life so vividly onto your Nintendo DS. Kind of sound like an ad. The people over at the now defunct Sing were able to achieve this animation through rotoscoping, a technique where they took still photos and videos of real-life actors and then traced rough lines and sketches around the frames that they shot. After the proper amount of shading and dynamic touches, the team would then export the animation to a Nintendo DS to make sure they got the sizing of the portraits and the eye lines just right to match up with Kyle Hyde's. I personally find this fascinating because rather than aiming to achieve photorealistic graphics and use of motion capture on a Nintendo DS, the team found a much more creative, albeit time-consuming way to make these characters really come to life to the point where you can read their moment-to-moment expressions as if they're actual people. And I can't really think of any other DS game I can talk about like that. As a huge fan of Spider-Man and Zelda and many other video game franchises, 2023 has been a real treat. Yet despite all of the releases I've been able to anticipate and enjoy this year, Hotel Dusk is still able to shine so brightly even after 16 years it's been released. I tried this game for the first time earlier this year and put it on the back burner while I spent my summer moseying around Hyrule and picked it back up the moment I was done with Tears of the Kingdom. And after playing so many huge games this year, my stay at Hotel Dusk was a much needed getaway. F you. And after that vacation was over, I then hopped onto Spider-Man 2 and completed it. And as much as I love Spider-Man and those video games, I still can't help but feel that Hotel Dusk is the game most emblematic of my 2023 gaming experience. Not just because I've taken the time to sit down with my DS and 3DS again, but also because I feel like I've learned a lot more about what I love about video games on a much smaller scale, as opposed to the big flashy and AAA games that I anticipate all the time. Not that there's anything wrong with those games, it's just, it's a breath of fresh air. That's all I can say. If Another Code Recollection does well next year, it's only logical to assume we might see a Hotel Dusk remake developed for the Switch, right? Much like Another Code, Hotel Dusk also has a sequel unreleased in North America, Last Window: The Secret of Cape West. So wouldn't that be the perfect reason to release a remake of both games? I'm not exactly sure how you would translate a game so in love with the Nintendo DS's quirks to something like a Switch, but the idea of seeing Kyle Hyde reappear at all is welcome in any way, shape, or form. Maybe have him move around in a 3D environment, but still maintain that same hand-drawn, take-on-me art style if possible. I can definitely see them adding an in-game hint system if they remake these games, because the logic behind where you're supposed to go and who you need to talk to isn't always super obvious to the 2023 gamer brain, especially if you're picking this game back up over long periods of not playing. But of course, one thing you'll never recapture with the modern remake is the physical act of taking notes and holding your system like a book. You can't hold your Switch like a book, but you can hold it like a Kindle. I don't know, I'm just brainstorming. But I think all of that is the least of our worries if it means just making this series a little more accessible to those who don't want to track down a Nintendo DS and a copy of a game from 2007. This is only speculation, but Nintendo's recent behavior might lead one to believe that if fans are passionate enough, no matter how popular or niche, there's always going to be hope in some kind of comeback or revival for your favorite video game series. I mean, the fact that Apollo Justice, Ace Attorney, and Ghost Trick Phantom Detective have gotten Switch treatments has to be because great Ace Attorney did well, right? And you know, Nintendo still knows Kyle Hyde exists because he last appeared 4 years ago in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I don't know anything about Another Code, but I do know that I'm excited to check it out next year and try it for myself. And maybe, just maybe, we'll all soon be able to revisit Hotel Dusk and perhaps even Cape West if we wish hard enough. But no matter what, we will never again be asked to hold a visual novel like a physical novel ever again. Check this game out if you're curious.